Hello, and this is Kurokami, and I'm back for yet another Junji Ito Anime Collection review. And today's episode was episode 8, and just forewarning, spoiler warning is in effect, because I talk about the differences and I go over the whole story. So if you have not watched the episode or read the manga and you don't want anything spoiled, leave now, come back later. Without further ado, let's get creepy. Oh, and before I actually talk about the individual episodes, I want to say that this episode, though it was not bad, the content of the actual material was good. I liked both stories, they were both entertaining, but I felt like, I don't know if I just didn't notice it before, or if it was just worse this episode. And what I'm talking about is the animation quality. I saw it more so in the first episode, or the first part of the episode, than the second. But for example, like when their face always looks different. Not like they're looking at different places, but they didn't really capture the likeness of the person. And it's like 2 different people or 3 different people drew the same person, you know, different styles. So I saw a lot of inconsistencies, and that I was not very happy about. But I try to look past that, especially because it's nice to even get Junji Ito's work in anime form and be somewhat decent. But besides that, it was still a good episode. So our first story of tonight was My Dear Ancestors, and it was 32 pages of the original manga. So it pretty much followed the manga exactly. There really wasn't any changes. It only skipped a few minor details, but that really doesn't matter too much. But yeah, like I was talking about, is the bad animation. And this episode was pretty bad with it, I'm not gonna lie. Mostly just with the facial reactions is what I noticed the most. With the actual content of the first story, I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. It was very interesting and bizarre. Very Junji Ito-esque, if I may say. He has a good way of making things that shouldn't be creepy. And people like are normally afraid of like tarantulas or any type of spider or insect, but people aren't typically scared of caterpillars. And I really feel like with what he did with this episode, really kind of hit that home where even a caterpillar can be scary. I can make even a caterpillar creepy to where you just freak out seeing it. So I do rate this as one of Junji Ito's maybe better works, I would say. Not anywhere near the top, but it was a good story, I'm not gonna lie. Not one of the best so far in this collection, but definitely one of the better ones. So I guess without further ado, let's start the first story. Amnesia. When the brain cannot recall a prior event in one's life, it is quite annoying for anyone, like misplacing the remote or forgetting about a doctor's appointment. We all suffer from it at least a few times here and there, but what about extreme cases? Yes, our main protagonist of our first story tonight, Risa, is a typical high school girl whom, for whatever reason, has completely lost her memory. Her name, friends, and even where her own house is, Risa simply cannot remember any of it. Luckily for her, though, she has a good friend who is willing to help her out. Makita, who found the girl acting quite odd on her way home from school, decided to assist the girl on her journey back home, where upon arrival was met with a concerned mother who could not understand how this could have happened to her daughter. Apparently this Makita fellow was not just Risa's friend, but was more than that. And just like any good boyfriend should, he made sure to visit his beloved whenever he could. Heck, starting off on a blank slate might actually be a good thing. If only they both were as optimistic as Makita was. Risa herself was not taking this very well at all. Constantly feeling a sense of dread, why was this poor girl suffering more than she already was thanks to losing her memories? Reaching to the point she was not even able to sleep at night, all Risa could do was lay in bed as her own mind slowly tore her to pieces. That's when it caught her attention. Her door began to slowly creak open, the light ever so slowly filling her pitch-black room. But what was that? Something hairy was peeking through the bottom of her door. It was a giant caterpillar. Literally the size of an anaconda, it inched closer and closer to the scared girl. A loud piercing scream echoed through the house, so loud as to send both of her parents darting upstairs thinking that their daughter very well could be being murdered. The only thing coming out of Risa's mouth was a giant caterpillar, but there was nothing but the three of them. Risa simply must have been dreaming it, as there is no way that giant caterpillars could exist, let alone one of them being in her room for that matter. Our girl Risa is surely not in her best place right now, is she? Maybe, just maybe Makita might be able to help her out. After all, he does seem determined to keep the relationship alive. Both a nice walk to cheer up as well as a nice change in scenery from her gloomy room should help lift her spirit. Peaceful, isn't it? Sitting by a riverbank as the gentle wind blows through your hair, what could be better? How about Makita expressing his love for Risa for a second time? This boy must be really determined, isn't he? Well, he understands just how frustrating losing your memories must be, so he wants to do anything he can do to put Risa at ease. That's when Makita proposes the idea that they should come back to his place. After all, his dad is sleeping, so there shouldn't be any issues, right? Unfortunately for Makita's father, his health is slowly diminishing. Before, he was a great writer, but now all he can do is lay in bed. Since Makita's mother already passed away some time ago, all Makita has left is his father and Risa. But why does Risa look so tense? What is going on in her mind? After all, this isn't the first time she's been here. Before Makita can find out anything, however, they hear a strange noise coming from his father's room. Oh, he must be awake. The door then swings open and 2 feet start to scurry out. Makita's father crawls out of his bedroom with his feet first. This guy definitely seems a little off. All he seems to spit out is that the two should get married, that she should take care of his son when he passes. Embarrassed, Makita quickly shuts his father down and tells him to go back to bed. But before he returns to his room, Risa hears a voice. A woman's voice. Did that come out of Makita's father's mouth? Risa is visibly shaken. Later that night, Risa is in the same predicament as she always seems to be at that time. Ongoing dread. Her misery continues as if the play button was pushed on cue. Something was different though. It seems to have gotten worse since she went to Makita's house. Maybe it is his house that is behind her sudden case of amnesia. Suddenly, she gets word that Makita is at her house calling for her. Doesn't he see the time? What could be so important that he needs to come over at such a late hour? Turns out that Makita's father is dying and called to see Risa before his time was up. Makita grabs Risa's arm and drags her out the door. Barging into his dad's room, Makita enthusiastically shouts to his father that he has Risa. Risa, though, is not enthusiastic. All color drains from her face as her eyes lay upon Makita's dying father. Multiple skulls protrude from each other, stemming from Makita's dad's very own head. They are so numerous and long that they wrap and curl throughout the whole bedroom, even extending into the next room. Risa can't help but to scream in terror. Makita explains that this is not the first time that she has seen this. After all, it's what triggered her amnesia in the first place. Now we all know why she had the hallucination of the giant caterpillar. These are the collected skulls of all of Makita's ancestors that stretch beyond the ages, all connected through blood and share a single conscience. Makita's father is dying and soon Makita will have to take his place. Then, out of nowhere, Risa regains all of her lost memories. Makita seems overjoyed, asking her if she remembers his proposal and how she happily accepted. Makita needs a wife to have a baby since he is the last in the line. She has to marry him. If he has no hire, the knowledge kept over the long centuries of his family will be gone. Risa, however, cannot handle this. She might have said yes before, but this is not what she had agreed to. She won't marry into this. She has to leave. Unfortunately, though, Risa cannot escape the monster. Makita is running out of time, and he has to have Risa. Then, out of nowhere, blood starts coming out of the boy's head, and he rushes back into his father's room, slamming the door behind him. Seconds later, the string of skulls follow suit, returning into the room as well. Risa just has to see what is going on. Upon opening the door, Risa sees Makita's dead father, his entire skull completely missing, blood drenching the floor. As she looks around, there is Makita, but now the skulls are protruding from his head. He turns to stare at Risa as if she had just caught him in the act of a murder. Then, just as if he were able to read the minds of hundreds of others at the same time, the voices of the Makita ancestors bombarded the boy's head as they all commanded him not to let Risa get away. The girl dashes off as if her life depends on it. All the while, the monster that is Makita chases after her on all fours, screaming her name, the piercing cries of a madman. Risa loses it. Her mind shuts down and she slides to the floor. She was gone once again. The joyous voices of the Makita family fill the room. At last, their family is safe for yet another generation. Okay, so for the second half of this episode, I'm gonna already say this flat out. It gets brownie points for me because I always found circuses amusing. A lot of people fear clowns, but I find them fascinating. I think the concept of them is cool, the cool colors, like the big red nose, I've always been fascinated. And even though people have turned it to like a horror-esque thing a lot, this story actually didn't do that at all. So don't think with this story, it's, okay, these circus people are like out to kill the people. No, it's completely different, but I won't go too far into it. But yeah, so I've always enjoyed circuses and costumes and dressing up. So this one really kind of, even if it was bad, I would have still enjoyed it. But it was good. I liked. It wasn't like slasher kill you scary. It was more so of, I guess, a twisted scary. Very much how Junji Ito likes to write his stories. So the actual chapter was called "The Circus is Here." And just like the last story, it was also 32 pages of the original manga. Now, there was only one big, massive change, and that was the absence of Yoshiyuki's little sister. In the manga, she is in the story 3 separate times. The first time, she is with Yoshiyuki when they are running to the circus, but she gets left behind because she's too slow. Then the second time you see her, she discovers something, and I won't go into it right now, but again, you'll see. And then the last part is the last panel of the chapter. There is a scene with his sister, but in the anime, that was not the case. Everything involving her was nixed. I guess, again, for time restraints. I did like it that she was in it in the original manga, but it didn't hurt the anime at all. So don't feel bad if you didn't read the manga and you're like, oh wow, I really missed out. Because you really didn't. It was good to have, but definitely not crucial. It's not something that, like, if you didn't know it existed, you would have no problem with that part of the anime. I felt like the animation in this episode was a little bit better. Not a whole lot, just a little bit. And I really enjoyed seeing that, like, the black and white circus that Junji Ito drew come into full color. I thought that was really interesting, and I very much enjoyed this one. When the episode first played, because I had already read this chapter before this came out, and I saw that it was this episode, I'm just like shaking my arms. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. I was so happy. But okay, without further ado, let's start this story as well. The circus is coming, the circus is coming. This is all that young Yoshiyuki could think about as he and his younger sister dashed to lay their eyes upon the marvels that this traveling show would indulge them in. Unfortunately, poor slow Hiroko just couldn't keep up with her older brother, so just like any young boy would do, Yoshiyuki left his innocent, sweet young sister in the dust. His heart thumping, his adrenaline pumping, Yoshiyuki dashed up the shrine stairs to see where the circus had set up at. What a wonderless appearance! A giant tent with red and white stripes. No kid in town could possibly miss this spectacle. Luckily, Yoshiyuki seems to have just made it in time. The doors are about to close. Just as he makes his seat, the show begins. The Populous Circus. The people of this town are about to experience the wonderful dream world that the show promises. First up is the delightful clown acrobatics. Everybody loves clowns, right? And seeing them try to bounce on giant colorful balls is bound to be a laugh. That's until one of these red-nosed performers lost his footing and crash hit the ground. So funny. Everyone breaks out in laughter. What a silly clown. But wait, why did the show stop? Get up, clown. Is he sleeping? Drag him away, the showmaster demands, and so he's pulled off stage. An accident right from the start? Rough. No time to dwindle, though. Time to move on to the next act of the day. The amazing tightrope walking. The crowd looks up to see a real beauty. A young girl wearing an elaborate dress stands above. Something seems familiar, though. Yes, this is the same girl that Yoshiyuki would often see at the park. She would always just stare into space doing nothing. Everyone would always find themselves sneaking peeks of her. She wasn't from around this town, so we were always so curious. The circus was like an excuse to see if this is where she came from. Seems like all of the boys felt the same way. Elegant to the end, she receives a marvelous round of applause. Okay, this show's improving. Rough start, but getting better. Now it's time for the stacked tightrope walking. These guys look amazing. Can they really pull this one off? The men begin to make their way across, but they lose their footing. The three performers fall from their ropes, screams piercing the air, until, crack, they collide with the ground. This must be a joke. They can't live past that. Don't worry, everyone. Falling into the sea would be worse, as they would have drowned and became shark food. Remember Yoshiyuki's sister? Well, she finally makes it to the circus, but the curtains are closed. Oh well, she'll just have to sneak in then. That's when she sees them. The bodies of all of those that have been drug off stage. They were dead. It's okay though, the remaining performers have this covered. They would save the show. Time for Knife Throwing Joe. He is like no other that you have ever seen. Knife after knife, Joe perfects his talent, surrounding his beautiful assistant with knives, but she remains unharmed. But then, what's this? Joe is almost finished, but one of his knives missed his target by a long shot, stuck all of the way in one of the support poles. Impossible! Joe never misses. He is the star of the show. Well, he'll just have to prove it. Guess he let his anger get the best of him, as the next knife was a little too on target. The knife had pierced his assistant's chest. They were dead. Joe had failed, but that wasn't going to stop him. Give me another chance, he begged to the showmaster. Very well. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe is about to perform the very first gravity theorem right now. Joe lays on the ground and begins throwing knives into the air. Yeah, this does not end well, as the second one enters his chest just like his assistant. He too now adds to the body count. Another one? Can they stop messing around? What's wrong with this circus? The acts that followed did not help to change the mood at all. The fire breather torched his own face. The human rocket became a casualty of the cannon explosion, and the lion tamer was eaten by the lion. Could this show really go on? Heck, this wasn't even a show anymore. It was more like a horror movie than anything. Forget all of that, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for this show to come to an end. The gorgeous Mario will perform the trapeze. Layla could not stand for no more. Mario, don't do it, she screamed. The chief isn't human but a god of death. He has tricked you all. He simply uses me to create more deaths so he can reap the souls. Mario will die if he goes through with his performance. Foolish man. Just as she warned, the trapeze snaps upon use and Mario falls to his death. The showrunner breaks into tears. His circus is in ruins thanks to these deaths. As long as you have talent, you can be part of the popular circus. You could even take the lovely Lalila as your bride, the desperate man preached to the audience as he sobbed his tears. While distracted, the last clown tries to save Lalila just for that overshot knife to magically fall from the pole to cause yet another victim in the circus of hell. Quite a coincidence. So, what's your decision? Seems like Yoshiyuki took the offer, pulled into the deal with the devil. The show must go on. Okay, quickly, because this video is running way too long, I hope you really enjoyed this episode. It was episode 8 of the Junji Ito Anime Collection. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more content in the future. Let me know how I did if you enjoyed it, and I will see you all in the next video. This is Kurokami, and I'm signing off.